I don't know, this is very like flowery talk right here for two guys, but hey, whatever. I mean,
that's
it's
all
like,
I care
yeah,
about. You
no,
know?
it's cool. Like,
I want to be with someone I really like.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. Yeah, it's important to talk about this stuff too.
Right.
Like, our society never
does not
talks
talk
about
about
it.
it.
Doesn't talk about.
and it never talks. It's really funny. Like reading that, it seems so obvious, but
Yeah.
it never talks about what happens after people get married.
Yeah.
Like this is the first look I've ever, like honest look at what it's like to be married to someone for 15 years. Like holy shit.
Holy shit.
What a commitment. Like
Yeah.
what a challenge, you know.
Yeah. So Skylar and I are playing chess under this redwood tree, talking about love.
It's true.
And he recommended this book to me yesterday, and I'm about 3/4 of the way through. I was really moved by his story about why I should read this book, how he heard about it. So wait, how did you hear about it? Why don't you just tell the audience a little bit?
Yeah. So my boss read this book and bought 50 copies of it to show how much he liked it. We sell books at the store I work at, and he said to me, you know, if I had read this when I was your age, I would have a different life.
Yeah, we were talking on the walk yesterday about how the book had shifted your perception of relationships, and how this book was about, this book is about in the fairy tales how the story will say happily ever after. This book is about the happily ever after. So like only like 20% of the book is about the getting married and leading up to the happily ever after. And then like 80% of the book is having kids, random struggles, like how two imperfect people try to figure out communication, how they love each other, and then, they drive each other insane at times. And like, how's it impacted you in terms of your relationships, or how you see them?
It's really slowed things down quite a bit, and it makes me want to learn how to communicate these feelings that I often don't know where they come from. I'll have a strong feeling of like resentment that comes up over the smallest thing, and instead of, it's not always easily identifiable what the source is, but either way I can speak to it now. I can say like, I felt really like hurt, and I don't know why. It doesn't make sense to me, but I felt that. So like, sorry for acting out irrationally on the surface, but
yeah, that's one of the things this book explores, is like how we have these childhoods that have like patterns of behavior. Like I think in one book, the wife, her dad left her when she was such a young kid, and so now that when her husband travels on vacations or travels away from work, she knows like up here that he's gonna come back, but in her heart from her childhood, she feels like this tremendous loss. And so when they're talking on the phone, he'll be like, hey, I love you, and then she'll just be bye, or like, she'll be very upset, even though it's like nothing is really wrong on the surface, but then underneath all these feelings are getting triggered, and it's so hard to communicate that.
Right. Reading this book, it kind of shows how to do it wrong.
How to do it wrong.
Yeah. And it makes me really want to do it right.
Yeah.
And to like take the time and pause and understand the source of my emotions, and understand that like her emotions are not always reflective of the moment. There's a lot of past cycling into the present, and to be really patient with that. I think that's huge though. Like I really want to do it right.
Yeah.
I don't want to make the same. I don't want to. It's like when you read a book that offers you lessons. It's like if you don't implement them, it didn't have an effect on you.
Yeah, it's important to talk about this stuff too.
Right.
Like, our society never
does not
talks
talk
about.
about
It
it.
doesn't talk about.
And it never talks. It's really funny. Like reading that, it seems so obvious, but
Yeah.
it never talks about what happens after people get married.
Yeah.
Like this is the first look I've ever honest look at what it's like to be married to someone for 15 years. Like holy shit.
Holy shit.
What a commitment. Like
Yeah.
what a challenge,
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a chapter in this book called Why You Will Marry the Wrong Person.
Mm.
And it's like, well,
Hey,
shit.
divorce rate's at 50%, and a
Right.
divorce is painful, very painful.
Yeah.
Everyone gets messed up. I think kids who go through divorce live like 4 years shorter on average. It's such a stressful event for kids.
Wow,
Yeah,
wow.
extremely stressful. And a lot of it's because, you go to the hospital, they give you like a brochure about shots, and
Yeah.
no one ever teaches you how to
How to-
communicate with these difficult feelings.
Right.
Why did your boss buy 50 copies of the book? Why did he say
Yeah.
this would have changed my life?
I think so many people don't understand where their actions are coming from and wherever their partner's actions could be coming from. And they don't have a
Yeah.
healthy respect for people's history,
Yeah.
and how big a role that plays in their actions, their present actions.
This is really important. I didn't know about this before I got my counseling psychology degree. And I'm shocked that we don't learn about this in society. It's really a damn shame. Transference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where an emotion from the past is directed towards a present
Yeah.
subject.
Yeah.
Like say someone's, it actually happened to me where someone was lecturing me about like a small thing, and I immediately felt like my mother was, telling me, correcting my behavior about something that I didn't think I did wrong, and I got so pissed. And it was like the smallest little thing.
Yeah.
And I had like rage inside me.
Yep.
And I was just, why was this happening? Like,
Yep.
This doesn't, I'm so pissed at you right now for just talking to me in a pretty normal way. So learning how to communicate it's really hard.
It's really hard.
Especially
it's really hard.
when you have the emotion rolling through you. And it's like full of fear and full of
Yeah.
self-doubt and full
Yeah.
of like unworthiness.
Yeah.
I know for me that's one that I'm like, the biggest fear is like why would you ever love me,
Yeah, yeah.
And then it's like,
Feeling unworthy.
and when you're feeling that, it's pretty hard to speak to it.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
When you're feeling super unloved and unworthy of love, and then
Yeah.
you're like to your partner, like,
I'm
this is
feeling
what I'm
unworthy right now.
Like,
And then they're like, "What the fuck?" And then you're just
No,
or like they might say that you
Your
might be
fear is that.
you're
but
you're-
really they're
yeah.
touched. They're like, wow, like, right, you're a human being. You're a little more fragile than everyone's more fragile than they put off. Could be.
Oh, that's what this book did for me. I was like, because I'll do that too, where I like create stories in my head,
Right.
and those stories get triggered because I feel something very strongly.
Right.
And what this book is teaching is like, hey, those feelings that you really like someone,
Like infatuation.
those are great feelings, but if you make a story out of those feelings, or if you like act on them, and if you don't have the other person's well-being in mind,
Right.
I think oftentimes when we feel
That's
infatuation, we're like
huge.
thinking about them meeting our needs,
Right.
and we don't
That's why it feels
pause
so
and,
good.
and don't. Yeah, that's why it feels so good, huh? Yeah, like, oh, this
Like-
person's gonna meet all my needs.
And the story that gets
and
woven
the story, yeah, and
is
then
like
like
perfectly around your own
perfectly
fears. you
yeah.
know?
And if we don't pause and step out of that, that infatuation's a great sign. We should potentially be interested in that person. But if we
Mhm.
don't step out of the infatuation, then we're just gonna, the other person will sense something weird, like, wow, this person's egotistical and
Yeah.
only caring about themselves, or something like
I
that.
heard a definition of maturity the other day by Adyashanti. He's like, a mature person is someone who has stopped living for themselves. And he was talking about like,
Yeah.
and that's really interesting. I think
Yeah.
that's like a mature relationship is
Yeah.
probably somewhere along those lines where like you're actually, your intention is like arising naturally to serve the other person into like their own
Yeah.
great.
And I think this book, again, The Course of Love,
Yeah.
I would recommend it for anyone, especially guys.
Yeah.
Like,
I know.
I mean, I'd like to think of myself as like a socially and emotionally intelligent guy, but this book is teaching me a lot.
Yeah.
And I think it can teach guys a lot of stuff too about like,
Our culture doesn't show what a relationship can really offer, because it's all about the romantic phase.
our culture is all about just getting to know someone and
Getting married.
and then
Like,
there's
or like,
yeah,
even if it's not literally getting married, it's like the struggles of meeting and like
attracting,
and then
dating, and
you both admit your love, and then it's
yeah,
that's the last.
maybe you
of it.
live together
Yeah,
beforehand.
right. Maybe yeah,
Maybe you have sex beforehand and maybe you don't.
right.
And then you get married and then like that's where our narrative ends.
Yeah. So we're left in the dark with probably the most important part of a human experience.
Yeah, relating back and forth with someone in a
For a long time.
for a long time.
In close quarters.
Close quarters, close combat.
Yeah.
Yeah, and something else that
Yeah.
this book reflected for me was a lot of times when you're living by yourself, it's easy to think you're normal.
Right. Right. Your weird little patterns.
Yeah,
Are not so normal.
yeah,
That's funny.
yeah. Like
Forgot about
cleaning, or if you're angry and you just like lock yourself in your room. That's fine when you're by yourself. Like if you just clean constantly and then lock yourself in your room when you're feeling angry, that's fine when you're by yourself. But when you're with another person, it's like that's not fine.
Yeah. Right. They're like, and you'll feel that too. Probably, I wouldn't know, but I imagine you lock yourself in your room and you're like, I wonder what they're thinking.
Yeah,
It's this whole different reflection of how you actually are.
yeah.
Which, yeah, that's interesting. Like, what if someone was watching everything you did?
Mhm.
Dear God.
Yeah, dear God. Jesus.
Right. It challenged you to a higher level of,
Yeah.
whoever you are. Hopefully.
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
Mhm.
Or I hope for.
This is emotional intelligence. I
Yeah,
mean, you can check
right.
out like our course too about emotional intelligence because it's so important to get
This
this
whole
stuff.
book is emotional intelligence.
This whole book is emotional intelligence. Like, your relationships are the number one predictor of your happiness, by far.